Y'all ready for this?
Bravo.
Welcome to Sports Kid, Drama Kid. I'm Jim. I'm the Sports Kid.
I'm Andy. I'm the Drama Kid.
Wearing my tie-dye shirt today. Got this in San Francisco on Haight Street.
You did.
It's pretty loud. So if you're...
And I chose to wear gray.
Before I ask you anything else, Andy, I need to ask you one question.
Okay.
Do you know why the Cleveland Browns are named the Cleveland Browns, the football team?
No, I do not.
Anyway, I was messaging with our friend Jake, who lives in New York. Being from Ohio, he mentioned that I should look into the Cincinnati Bengals stadium drama. Apparently,
not
there
the
was some drama.
Brown Stadium?
No, it's all kind of tied together with Ohio drama. Jake said that the situation is bad, and let me tell you, it's not just bad; it's a financial mess that started with one of the most influential figures in football and his son.
There's a lot of bad decisions being made in the NFL due to just like nepotism.
That's really funny you mentioned that because I actually made a sound cue for nepotism because we mention it so much on the podcast. Oh
my God.
So I'll debut that here.
Oh my God.
Nepotism. That's America, baby.
Is that from something? Or you just
no,
made
I just
that
made
up?
that.
Got it.
I made it with AI and sound effects.
Nice.
So,
I love the sparkler.
yes, there's a little sparkler at the end there and an eagle screech. That's America, baby. Okay, so now to clarify everything for you, I'm going to play a little clip from a Football Life documentary, which is one of the very flowery documentary series from the NFL worshiping, their legends.
Nothing galls me more to hear people say, "What is a Brown?" They don't even understand why the Cleveland Browns are named the Cleveland Browns.
Could you imagine the Miami Shulas or the New England Belichicks? Paul Brown had the Browns named after him. He was the Browns.
Oh, no.
And the grandest guy in the world, Paul Brown.
Hello.
They just called it the Browns after Paul Brown, which is why you end up with this really weird
What is
mascot.
Leah Remini doing here?
This weird little brownie with a little pointed cap and a really fierce scowl on its face.
Is that not Leah Remini?
No.
Oh.
Check the record. And then you tell me who's the greatest coach of all time. I don't think we'll ever see anybody have that kind of impact. They're not the Green Bay Lombardis.
Chris Collingsworth.
Yep. Anyway, this goes then into the full episode. Paul Brown, the founder of the Browns, also named the team after himself.
So, okay. Was he the owner and coach?
Yes, so Paul Brown is one of the most influential figures in football history, and he founded both the Browns and the Bengals. So let me tell you how he did that. In 1946, Paul Brown was recruited by the owner of the Cleveland football team to help launch a franchise for the All-America Football Conference, AAFC, which was a rival to the NFL, similar to like the XFL and stuff today that are trying to nip away at some of that football money.
Okay, we're talking about what period of time?
This is 1946.
Got it. Okay.
So the AAFC saw potential with creating new teams to try to merge with the NFL. Paul Brown was already well known for his success coaching high school football and at Ohio State College, and he accepted the offer if he could control all the football operations.
Classic move.
A Jerry
Classic
Jones
move by a man to be like, I'll do it, but only if I am God.
Yes. So this Browns team, the Cleveland Browns, named by McBride, the owner, in honor of the coach, dominated the AAFC, winning 4 consecutive championships, and then that team joined the NFL.
Okay.
So that's kind of the pathway that I think even today's rival leagues are trying to take. Like, hey, maybe they'll be looking for an expansion team at some point, and the Birmingham whatevers might be like have built enough of a fan base that they themselves could join.
That makes sense that you could like try to build up a team.
Yeah,
and
it's
like
way
get
harder now
noticed that
with
way.
without money, But
I can imagine.
So the AAFC folded, the Browns moved to the NFL. So Paul Brown introduced a lot of things to the game as well, because like football is getting modernized in that era with him. And it's still like very new as a game in terms of like strategy.
We're talking like leather helmet.
Yeah.
Still.
So he introduced the idea of the playbook and classroom style study sessions for players, sort of modernizing football. He also was the first to hire full-time assistant coaches and look at film. Like we're talking like he revolutionized how people study football in a lot of ways. His like structure and methodology is like kind of like the backbone of how all those staffs put themselves together.
Sounds like a high school coach, you know, bringing in sort of that like classroom high school mentality.
You've commented on this in like Hard Knocks, like that college lecture hall vibe that like is prevalent in all NFL or like all sports now.
I never knew about that until we watched Hard Knocks. I was like, what? Where are we?
Why? Growing up playing sports, it was like locker room talks and then go home kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like, there was talk of film, but no one really watched film. No one really.
I mean, it makes sense. Like they have these giant complexes. It makes sense that there are other things in those other than like football fields, but it just didn't occur to me. And then I was like, this is like a very nice lecture hall. All these guys are sitting in very comfortable chairs and they're getting like a TED talk about football and confidence.
So in 1963, Art Modell bought the Browns, and he fired, as they usually do, Paul Brown. In 1967, Paul Brown, not being done with football, founded the Cincinnati Bengals as part of another upstart league, the American Football League.
So he got fired and he was like, joke's on
I'll
you. I'm just going to do it again.
It was a competitor to the NFL, just like the AAFC. But yeah, so this time the AFL and NFL actually merged during the actual like big merger. And so now he was in the NFL again. And the creation of the Bengals gave him a chance to return to football. And he coached the team until 1975 and stayed involved as the team's president and general manager, guiding its operations until, he was very old. Brown's ability to found two successful NFL franchises from two different leagues is kind of a big thing that cements him in history, because that's wild. That's
like a pretty, I don't know. We're going to find out what kind of guy this guy is, I'm sure. So like, if I say something nice about him now, don't take it out on me later. But like, that's a pretty like dope move to be like, oh, you're going to fire me? I'll just start back. I will start.
Also another team in Ohio.
I will start back at the bottom. I mean, not really the bottom, because he had a lot of like influence and privilege at that point, I'm sure. But like I'll just start another NFL team.
My heart is in Ohio.
Because my heart is in Ohio.
So actually, we're going to go away from Paul Brown now. So he was, just who he was, how I described it. We're not going to go any further on him.
Okay.
But
okay.
We will talk about his son, Mike Brown, who inherited the team in 1991 from his dad.
The Bengals?
Yes.
Okay.
Mike's management style was far different from his father's. Paul was known for being really, sharp and innovative with football and a leader. Mike became notorious for being stubborn, penny pinching, and just frustrating to work with in general.
Cool.
Under Mike Brown's leadership, the Bengals quickly developed a reputation as one of the worst-run franchises in the NFL.
Oh, no.
Enduring long losing stretches and just chaos in an organizational level, too.
Huh. It kind of seems like Paul Brown was really good at raising football teams and maybe not raising his son.
Ooh, maybe he was in the office all day.
I'm just saying, like, if your son turns out kind of shitty and you were really great, but you managed to make two NFL teams, like maybe you weren't spending enough time at home. I don't know. I'm just saying.
So the contrast between Paul's legacy and Mike's ownership set the stage for one of the biggest controversies in Cincinnati's sporting history: the construction of Paul Brown Stadium. Named after Mike's father, but forever tied to Mike and his decisions. Any questions?
So we're talking about the Bengals, but the Bengals, they're building a stadium named after the guy who's also the Browns named and that's there.
Yes.
Woof.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And you said like the fandoms don't like each other.
No.
Interesting.
Yeah. So now we're in the early 90s. Under Mike Brown's leadership, the Bengals were still playing at Riverfront Stadium, which was a multi-purpose stadium they shared with the Reds.
Oh.
In Cincy.
And that's a different sport entirely.
Different sport. Mike Brown wasn't happy about this and wanted a football-only stadium, and he wanted modern facilities to compete with the NFL, as every owner does.
Sure.
I'm going to show you a fun little thing I pulled up from NFL.com, a bunch of different shots of football being played in baseball stadiums and where that happened throughout history.
Oh, cool.
Like this. So I'm going to show you some of them. This was
there's like a diamond in the middle.
The Coliseum in Oakland, the Oakland Coliseum where the struggling A's are about to leave. They also house the Raiders. That's why I was like, it's such a bad thing in Oakland is like they had tons of support, but like they had only one sort of shitty stadium for both teams, and they put a football field over the baseball field. Oh, this one's cool. This is Milwaukee County Stadium where the Brewers played. The Packers would play there several games a year in order to get the Milwaukee crowd more involved.
Oh, sure, yeah.
And so they'd put a field in the middle of the baseball field, which that is the stadium that was destroyed during Big Blue and that whole disaster.
When they built Miller Park.
There's a bunch of these, but it's just kind of funny. Even Yankee Stadium, this is way back.
So crazy.
Where they put a Giants game in there or a Jets game.
I guess I didn't realize how big baseball stadiums are, because in my head, I'm like, you can't fit a football field inside a baseball stadium.
And here's a crazy one, Wrigley Field.
What?
They put a Bears game in Wrigley.
They did?
See right there.
Wrigley Field is that's just where Billy Joel lives. We shouldn't even technically be playing baseball. Yeah,
the Grateful Dead have basically bought that. Well, John Mayer. There's a box in there that where he sleeps.
It's shaped like a guitar.
Yes. Reality is working against me. So Mike Brown made it really clear that if Cincinnati didn't provide the team with a new stadium, he'd consider moving the Bengals elsewhere. This was the start of Mike Brown's years-long war of words in the press with the people of Ohio and the city government over getting a stadium built. Here's an opinion piece in 1993 from the Cincinnati Post about Brown threatening to leave, and we're going to kind of just go through the chronology here of like his threats and what happened.
Oh, it's written by a guy named Paul Doherty. Battle of the Pauls. Brown testing Cincinnati's loyalty. Mike Brown is drafting the ransom note. He's making plans to take the city of Cincinnati and stuff it in the trunk of his sensible, mid-size American-made sedan. He'll keep it there until his demands are met. If not, he'll dump Cincinnati on the side of the road, NFL-less. We'll just be another Sacramento. Ooh, burn to Sacramento.
Yeah.
Brown has said what he thinks about the future of the Bengals in Cincinnati, which, without a new stadium, is no future at all. Quote, if you don't have a stronger facility, an NFL team will not be viable here out into the future, he said Friday. It is Field of Dreams backwards. If you don't build it, we will leave. Nice. Brown has thought this way for quite some time. Only now he is beginning the full court press. He is getting antsy. Mike Brown hears Cincinnati's mayor-elect say she'd prefer a new stadium for the Reds. He thinks, how about dem Memphis Bengals? We have leverage, Brown says. No question about it. He sees stadium mania sweeping the country. He wants in.
Yes, Mike Brown is basically using the papers now to basically be like, hey, we could go to Memphis. We can go anywhere.
Yeah.
We can, and just like kind of put that as a bug into the ears of the public and the city of like, you want an NFL team, which is like a prize crown jewel in America.
I'll go elsewhere. I'll go wherever there's space for me to go. I have no loyalty.
Yeah. So the potential economic loss of an NFL team was too much for the city to bear at the time, and they came to the negotiating table with Brown.
Okay.
This led to 1996, and the Hamilton County, which is where Cincinnati is, sales tax vote.
Oh, yeah. I'm very familiar with all the counties in Ohio.
Yeah, you're familiar with it because Steve Kornacki talks about it. So you gotta get ready. So in 1996, Hamilton County voters were asked to approve a half-cent sales tax increase to fund new stadiums for both the Bengals and the Reds. The tax hike was framed as a necessary move to keep both teams in Cincinnati and promised economic growth, new jobs, and downtown revitalization.
Okay.
What's your thoughts on like stadiums?
I mean,
in general, like being in downtowns in the ones you've seen.
I mean, we've talked a little bit about this before, like as a taxpayer. Maybe now I would change my tune, but if you had asked me previously in my life, like, do you want higher local taxes so that we can build a sports stadium? I'd be like, absolutely not.
Yeah, a lot of people feel that way, I think.
Again, I said this before, not unless you plan to have several Beyonce concerts a year in that facility. Then we can talk.
So Mike Brown, he was focused on getting a stadium for the Bengals, but also getting a deal that would benefit him and the Bengals into the future.
Okay.
His negotiation tactics were aggressive, and he held firm on his demand that the new stadium was the only way to keep a team in Cincinnati. Here's an article when the bill passed on Tuesday, March 19th, 1996, this ran on Wednesday in the Cincy Enquirer.
Bengals president Mike Brown was visibly moved Tuesday night as he took the stage amid chants of Mike, intermingled with the cheer of Who Dey, that's the Bengals.
Who Dey think they're gonna beat them Bengals?
Oh yeah, that was in their rap.
Yep.
Their Bengals rap that we did for Patreon episode. But he had no thoughts of moving. The Bengals won't move to Cleveland, Anaheim, Seattle, or anywhere else. We're here, he told reporters in a back hall of the Omni Netherland Plaza. You can cover us for the next 20 years. Even after the overwhelming vote approving Issue 1, a sales tax for stadium construction, Mr. Brown admitted there are still obstacles to securing a long-term lease with Hamilton County. Among items on the table, sources say, are rent, maintenance, and naming rights. But he's confident the highest hurdle has been cleared. Mr. Brown would like the team to be in the new stadium by 1999, but he said that's still to be determined. Mr. Brown, who has taken much abuse during the Bengals' 21-59 record since he took control of the team, looked awkward as he was greeted like a conquering hero. Quote, I'm glad I had one day like this in my life, Mr. Brown said. It sort of makes up for some of the others when you're treated otherwise.
That's sad.
He even got bigger cheers than local icon Marge Schott. The Reds CEO and president, who appeared at the election night party, had supported Issue 1 with only one lukewarm statement. She should have been here. I'm pleased she was here, Mr. Brown said. We have to figure this out together. The Bengals and Reds have this wonderful opportunity to make our futures in Cincinnati the way they need to be made. I think she evidenced that by her presence tonight. She's all for that.
Okay. Andy, in that article,
yes,
they mentioned Marge Schott.
Yes.
Right? She's the owner of the Reds at the time, who was involved in the stadium deal.
Yes.
I did a little Google search, a little journalism typing.
Journalism
just
typing?
To see what the deal was with Marge Schott.
Yeah, you gotta.
Maybe the two owners fucked at some point.
Oh, no.
I don't know what went on in Cincinnati in the 80s and 90s. I didn't live there, and I was barely even born. I was fully expecting Marge to be maybe the lesser of two evils.
Okay.
But look what I found.
Oh, no.
Okay, I'm going to show you this. I'll just do it on my computer so you can get the reveal. Here's the first thing I want to show you.
Hi, I'm Marge Schott, and I personally guarantee you the best deal in Cincinnati on a new Buick or Chevrolet. Visit either Marge's Chevrolet.
Describe what you just saw.
Okay, what I just saw was Marge wearing a caftan with was that a St. Bernard?
Hi, I'm Marge Schott, and I personally guarantee you the best deal in Cincinnati on a new Buick or Chevrolet. Visit either Marge's Chevrolet.
Oh my God. Okay, so they're
Buick.
like in like a Sears.
Yeah.
Like, because it has like the backdrop with like the sort of like, I don't know, hazy like gray tie-dye in the background. And she's sitting down with the sleepiest dog in her lap, and the dog's wearing a Reds hat. And she's wearing a striped caftan and talking about how you can get a car deal at either of her two car dealerships that are named after her. Oh, you don't fuck with a woman named Marge.
Well, yeah, I guess you really don't, because I actually didn't mean to play that little cute clip first. I actually meant to play this first. Sorry. You can read this.
Okay. Oh no. No. You did that on purpose.
Yeah,
you did that on purpose.
Read
you
it.
made me say a
Read
nice
it.
thing. Schott praises Hitler again. Again?
Twice at least.
No.
Continue.
Oh God. Marge Schott once again is praising the start of Adolf Hitler's term as German Chancellor. Quote, everything you read, when he came in, he was good, the Cincinnati Reds owner said in an interview aired by ESPN Sunday night. Quote, they built tremendous highways and got all the factories going. He went nuts. He went berserk.
I'd say.
Everybody knows he was good at the beginning, but he just went too far. Oh my God. She made similar comments in a 1992 interview with the New York Times. And this article came out in 2021.
Yeah.
Oh my God. She made similar comments in a 1992 interview with the New York Times. So in the decade intervening, she has not changed her mind about this.
I'm sorry. That was too much for me. I think she's dead now, but I have another thing for you to read from the Commonwealth Journal.
Can you just admit to the fact that you played the video of her with the dog, not by accident?
Oh yeah, it's in my outline. Because if I show you dog last, then you're going to be like, Nazi dog.
I know. And you really got me too, because like I was prepared. I was like, her name's Marge. I love a woman named Marge. It seems like she has like
Simpson energy.
Seems like she's like, yeah, well, it seems like she's like ahead of her time in the sense that like she's a female owner during the 80s and 90s, and like she has a doll. I was all in on Marge. And to be clear, I am no longer. Oh my God. Can you imagine being like, no, write it down, put it in the press.
Yeah.
Hitler was great.
All right. I need you to read the next thing.
Okay. For all the wonderful things she did, Marge was also incredibly and unapologetically racist. What a shock. Her slurs and comments kept her in the MLB doghouse on a constant basis until she was forced to sell the Reds in 1999. The final straw was an interview in which she admitted collecting Nazi memorabilia. And said, quote, Hitler did some good things. He just went too far. Okay, yeah. So she's like, this quote can go everywhere. I'm fine. That's a good quote. Prior to that incident, she slurred Japanese Americans, Jews, and called black superstars Eric Davis and Dave Parker her, quote, $1 million N-words. Oh my God. At the height of the controversy swirling around shots, Sports Illustrated ran a cover photo of Marge, cigarette in hand, with the words, quote, the Red Menace as a headline.
Yeah, they fucking platformed her at the peak of her racism.
Don't make it cute. Don't make her into like a Disney villain. She's a Nazi.
This is the cover.
Oh my God. Well, at least she looks awful.
Yeah, she looks terrible, and she looks like it's the cover of a documentary about quitting smoking.
Yes, this is absolutely a before picture. Yeah, of someone who like needs to make a bunch of changes in her life.
Yeah,
we need like a post smoking and post being a racist, bigoted Nazi.
It is weird though, because like the reason that this got unearthed recently is because of another story, which we'll have to get to at some point, with Donald Sterling and the Clippers being like a racist, shitty owner.
Yeah, I remember.
And then this was like why Sports Illustrated brought this up around then, and like I think it was like 2014, 15.
Yeah,
to be like, there was also this lady. Remember her? Like she
women are also bad.
She was racist too.
As a woman, I always feel so betrayed when like a woman in power turns out to be like, if just as bad, if not worse, than her male counterparts.
Yeah. So now I'm going to introduce you to one other figure, sort of a little personal.
It better be like a fuzzy, happy mascot.
Oh, it's not. It's not.
Damn it.
It's the story of Bob Bettinghouse. Now, if you can pick your jaw up off the floor after learning about Marge Schott, I'm going to do a little double click here. And he's a political figure that was key in all of this.
Okay.
Bob Bettinghouse was a Republican Hamilton County commissioner during the 90s and was instrumental in the passing of the 96 sales tax to fund both Paul Brown Stadium and Great American Ballpark, where the Reds would play. Bettinghouse campaigned heavily to convince voters that the stadium deal would boost the local economy, bring jobs, revitalize downtown. The same thing they pitched from the beginning, what Mike Brown did. So Bettinghouse was a major proponent of the half-cent increase. He promoted the idea of keeping both the Bengals and the Reds, and anything that they would have to give up as a city was a necessary sacrifice for keeping pro sports teams. Despite his efforts, the public got frustrated as the cost of the stadium ballooned, which we'll talk about in a little bit here, way beyond the initial cost. Bettinghouse became a focal point as it was like his baby. And so he was the one that sort of ate the political death for the stadium going wrong.
Where's Mike Brown at this point?
Mike Brown is just Mike Brown, and he's trying to get the stadium built and has already got the deal done, so he just figures it's done.
Okay.
In 2000, Bettinghouse ran for re-election, but because he was central in the stadium deal that the public hated so much, which we'll get to, he was actually voted out and sort of took the fall. But, and here's what I wanted to get to. Bob Bettinghouse was hired by the Cincinnati Bengals in 2001, right after being fired, or like right after losing election. So he's basically in the pocket of the Bengals as an elected official. And as soon as he got done with it being elected official, they hired him. So that looked even worse for him.
Oh, I'm sure.
To the public, who was like already thinking he was a Bengals pawn.
It's like, it's very similar to like someone who's like a couple going through a breakup, and one of them's like, as soon as we break up, you're going to date that guy that like I've always been concerned about.
And they do.
And then they do.
Yeah. So I'm going to have you read just a little bit about Bettinghouse working for the Bengals.
Bob Bettinghouse, who led the charge for construction of Paul Brown Stadium and lost his job as a Hamilton County commissioner last year when cost overruns hit $50 million, now has an office in the same riverfront stadium. The Cincinnati Bengals have retained Bettinghouse as a consultant on stadium and riverfront development issues, Bengals spokesman Jack Brennan said today. Bettinghouse, however, is not a salaried employee of the team, Brennan stressed. Bettinghouse, who could not be reached for comment, is a vice president of Holland Communications, a downtown consulting firm where he handles strategic planning and public affairs work. In an arrangement with his firm, Bettinghouse is allowed to have limited outside engagements with other organizations, such as the Consulting Pact with the Bengals. Bettinghouse, who championed the half-cent sales tax used to build new stadiums for the Bengals and the Reds, was defeated in his 2000 re-election bid by then Cincinnati City Council member Todd Portune.
So yeah, they hired the guy who everyone hated his city plan so much they didn't elect him again to continue consulting on planning for the stadium. Like, what the fuck?
No offense to people who work in consulting, because I'm sure many of you know what your job is and do it very well. But I feel like in my 35 years on this earth, I have come across quite a few people where I'm like, I know you work in consulting, but I'm not sure you know what you do.
Yeah. Now we'll go back to what actually happened and why all the cost overruns. When construction of Paul Brown Stadium began, the initial projected cost was around $280 million. But by the time the stadium was completed in 2000, the final price tag had ballooned to $455 million.
God.
The sharp increase in cost caused significant frustration among the public, as you could imagine, as it became clear that the taxpayers would bear the brunt of this increase in cost.
Yeah, because it's already like paid for, and now they're just like paying it off.
So the backlash began almost immediately as the Hamilton County residents realized that this half-cent sales tax, which they barely got passed as a measure in itself in 96, would not come close to generating enough revenue to cover the cost of the stadium. So the impact of the stadium deal went far beyond these costs because of the overrun. So first of all, there was a major strain on public services in order to cover this cost. The county was forced to cut funding from essential services such as schools, libraries, and public health initiatives. Hamilton County officials had originally promised that the stadium would boost economic development in downtown Cincinnati. Those promises didn't materialize, and residents saw cuts to all their services in order to raise money for the stadium. Next.
This would make me so mad.
Next, and most damning, the state-of-the-art clause that was put into the contract or the deal, which was negotiated by Mike Brown into the deal and required the county to keep the stadium at the cutting edge of technology, forcing taxpayers to continue paying for upgrades if the stadium needed something that the top half of stadiums in the league had.
Oh,
that they didn't
my
have.
God. What a shitty, stupid rule.
And he sold it to them as like, we want to always stay current. So why wouldn't we always have money to stay current? And that money would keep coming from the city. So over time, this clause added millions of dollars to the long-term cost. By 2011, the cost of maintaining the stadium consumed 16.4% of Hamilton County's annual budget. For the whole county.
Significant.
So, yes. And how significant? I went into it. I looked at a typical budget, and we can compare 16.4% to that. So, public safety, police, and fire usually takes about 30 to 40% of the total budget of the city. Education, 25 to 35. Infrastructure like roads, bridges, and water, 10 to 15. So we're already saying the stadium's more important than roads, water, and bridges in terms of percentage. And then health and human services, 10 to 20. So this is way more important than healthcare. And then debt services like 5 to 10%, like having extra budgets to service debts to other cities and stuff. Anyway, this became this one stadium, this one building project, or like two stadium project, became 16% of like their entire tax dollars was going to that, which is more, like I said, than healthcare, libraries, schools.
Yeah.
So they're just decimating the public infrastructure for this.
It's so shitty. Like, it's so shitty. Like, if I'm sure people moved out, like I would leave.
Yeah.
I would leave.
I didn't really see, like, I look into that aspect of it now that I'm thinking about it, but yeah.
No, because it's like, it would make me so angry to pay my taxes knowing that like this isn't going to like, I don't know, anything that's going to affect me directly positively unless I decide to pay money to go to a game
that I already paid for the stadium.
Yeah.
So the Bengals continue to play in this new home, but like people got more and more frustrated because they still had to keep paying for it. So as it became clear that the stadium was costing way more than expected, Public backlash grew. Residents filed lawsuits claiming to have been misled. One infamous aspect of this whole back and forth in negotiating was they actually proposed a rollback on property taxes, and then they cut that.
Oh my
so they didn't
God.
even vote it in yet. They proposed a tax. Everyone was excited because we're going to get taxes cut. And they said, actually, we need it for the stadium, and put it back. So like they didn't even need to say they were going to do this good thing, but they did and then took it back. Similar to Biden and the school stuff.
Yeah. I remember getting that email.
College.
It's like your 10K of your student loans is going to go away because you're entitled to it. And then like couple weeks later they were like, we can't anymore.
Yeah, sorry, man.
The thing that really bothers me about this, obviously I don't know this for sure, but I'm assuming that there are certain people who are involved in this who have millions of dollars and could have used
like the Browns. The Brown family.
Of their own money
Yeah.
to do this. Like, it drives me crazy when like people who already are hoarding wealth, instead of paying for the thing that they want, are like, well, what if we just like spread it out over like the public?
By the time the stadium's cost hit Hamilton County's budget in full, it was clear that the deal had become one of the worst stadium financing agreements in the history of sports. Forbes even called it the worst stadium deal ever in a 2012 article. So everyone knows it. Mike Brown sucks. Even with a new shiny stadium, the Bengals remained one of the NFL's worst teams throughout the 90s and early 2000s under Mike Brown. The team became infamous for its long losing streaks and lack of playoff appearances and overall dysfunction. And now we're going to get into sort of from 2000 sort of to more present, some articles and things just sort of explaining the cost overrun. So I'll have you just read pieces of articles here and we'll kind of cut between them.
Okay. Overruns break budget trust. What will the $14.3 million in tax dollars buy Hamilton County? A little more than 1 month of work when it comes to building Paul Brown Stadium. County officials bought 1 month's, at most 2 months, breathing room by agreeing Wednesday to pour the additional cash into the Bengals' new home. The money will be used to pay trade contractors who have been reluctant to work overtime for fear of not getting paid and keep construction rolling. When that money runs out, county officials will then have to plow at least $31 million more into the project to finish. The extra cash is needed because the stadium is more expensive to build than anyone previously thought, mainly because of hundreds of design changes made during the construction. Who foots the Paul Brown Stadium bill? Efforts are underway to recover millions of dollars in cost overruns from the construction of taxpayer-financed Paul Brown Stadium. But that won't happen for months, if ever. Quote, there are a lot of things that need to be done before there's any decision on whether to go to court, Hamilton County Administrator David Kring said last week. Quote, one of the accountants I met with said it's not unusual to take a year to wrap everything up. We have a number of outside consultants working on it. I'm sure you do.
Dude,
you need to
hard.
check in with them to make sure they know what their job is.
2007. They're still complaining.
Oh my God.
About the state-of-the-art clause because now that has really kicked in to start improving the stadium that they just built.
The state-of-the-art clause is the most like douchebag bro thing I've ever heard in my life of like, we need to put it in writing that this stadium is always going to be like fucking sick.
Bro. Like, hey man, can we just like get like, so if our Jumbotron's smaller than anybody's Jumbotron, we need a bigger Jumbotron. Okay?
It's very Trumpy. If I see something cool at another stadium, we have to get it.
Yeah. The biggest, most elite, most lethal stadium ever.
Okay. So this is from 2007. Bengals keep taking money for upgrades under their clause. Quote, what the Bengals have done very efficiently is take whatever leverage they have and turn it into more money for them, Portune said. The team notes a clause in that lease requires Hamilton County to pay for stadium enhancements also made to stadiums where other National Football League teams play. That's so vague. Like, how do you determine that? Like,
there's more rules.
Does Mike Brown like go somewhere and they're like, they got a freestyle Coke machine?
Hey, they got a bar behind the bench for like guys who don't want to play. They could just get mixers, martinis and shit.
Like, when the stadium opened in 2000, it had a grass field.
Oh, sorry, I forgot one other thing. They had live tigers for the Bengals brought in. No, I'm kidding. I just thought that would be a little budget pork.
Now we're talking like, again, now we're leaning into the area where I might have some interest in funding it. If there were somewhere that I could go to see live tigers, I don't know, maybe you can put it in my taxes.
Yeah, let's make the front lobby a tiger zoo.
Yeah. Why not?
Why not? Work with the city on that.
When the stadium opened in 2000, it had a grass field at the insistence of the team, county officials said. Because the grass kept dying, the grass is like, this is a mess. I don't want to be here. I don't want to be
involved.
I do not want to be here. Because the grass kept dying, the team installed synthetic turf and a heating system under it in 2004. You have to heat the turf from underneath?
Yeah, because it's not a dome.
Then it billed the county I can't even read this number. $889,605.96 for it, allowing the payments to be made over 3 years. Oh, that's so nice of them.
Yeah.
I know this is how taxes work, but it like is insane to me to be like, oh, what do I owe in taxes? Why do I owe that much? Oh, because all the grass died at Paul Brown Stadium.
And we fucking insisted on it as a team, and we knew it would die, and everyone told us not to put grass in Ohio because there's winter and stuff, and you have new technologies.
Mike Brown was in the executive suite at AT&T Stadium, and he got to use a bidet. And now he's like,
oh my God, they wiped my ass with water there.
And now the taxpayers need to make sure that Mike Brown gets Evian water shot straight up his asshole.
Fans of the Who Dey Revolution, like a Bengals anti-Mike Brown group that came up around this time,
love that.
Encourage members to call what the stadium called the jerk line on Mike Brown for mentally abusing them from his owner's box.
Oh my God.
So they put in a line at the stadium that anyone could call via their cell phone or text saying someone's being an asshole, and like security would come check it out.
Oh.
There was a thing at the stadium pushed by these people to have everyone call Mike Brown out.
Oh my God, of course.
So I'll have you read I'll read this little snippet. If you are a frustrated Bengals fan, and I know that sounds redundant, you need to join the Who Dey Revolution. It is a preemptive site for Bengals lovers who want their team back. WDR is up to some new tricks by launching Project Mayhem. The Project Mayhem is designed to do two things: reducing owner Mike Brown's profits and ultimately disrupting the order of things in Bengals land. The first task to start the mayhem is turning Brown in by calling the team's jerk line. Every Bengals fan, whether you are at PBS or elsewhere, needs to call 513-381-JERK on Sunday between 1 and 4 and say, as a Bengals fan, Mike Brown is mentally and emotionally abusing me from his owner's box. Everyone should call once, say the above line, and hang up promptly.
Can we call it? Or it doesn't work anymore?
It doesn't work anymore, but you could try.
I don't have all right. What was the number?
513-381 5375.
That's jerk. 5375. All right, we're calling it.
Just ask if this is the Bengals jerk line.
I'm sorry. Your call cannot be completed as dialed, or the number has been disconnected. Please check the number and dial again.
I'd like to speak to Mike Brown, please.
Yeah, I'd like to speak to Mike Brown. As a Bengals fan, Mike Brown is mentally and emotionally abusing me from his owner's box. Hang up. This is an ESPN article.
Bengals jerk hotline gets mixed signals in debut. Most of the people who called the Cincinnati Bengals new hotline for reporting unruly fans just wanted to see if it worked or hung up. About 100 calls had come into the hotline, 381-JERK, by the end of halftime at the Bengals. Only 100? You guys are wasting an opportunity.
Yeah.
Hamilton County Sheriff's deputies were dispatched to handle rowdy fans at least once because of a call to the hotline, said Bob Bettinghouse, the team's director of development for Paul Brown Stadium. I like how he's like, it was mostly people like saying horrible shit about Mike Brown, but we had one legitimate
Mike Brown can eat my ass. Fuck you, Mike Brown.
And then there was one person that's like, some guys threw up near my shoes.
Yeah.
And they like took care of it.
Yep.
One security guard manned the hotline's sole telephone during the game. The line doesn't have call waiting or voicemail, so some fans may have gotten a busy signal. Quote, if 90% of the calls we're getting are prank calls, he said, we need to reevaluate this. What the fuck were you expecting? This is how I know this man's stupid.
Yeah.
Because like, what were you expecting? After you saddled these very people with the cost of building a stadium that they are in right now watching the game, and they're still
and paid
paying
hundreds
for
of
it.
dollars for
They've
the tickets.
They've already paid for the tickets. They've already paid for the stadium. Like, they're still paying for the stadium. And what did you expect? That like people were going to be nice on the like? Clear. This is a man who has never worked customer service in his life.
So this is the first time we actually see Mike Brown in this, and he is Emperor Palpatine, if I ever seen one.
Oh my God, he really is.
I say that about every NFL owner, but this guy is...
no, he's like especially Palpatine.
Palpatine-esque.
Yes.
And we'll just hear from him, and he blames all this on Democrats, obviously.
Oh, sure.
He basically, in this clip, I'll just
Classic.
kind of preface it because he's kind of hard to understand sometimes. He basically makes the case that they actually did have all the money in that first half-cent tax, but Democrats... stole all the money for other pet projects in the city.
Like roads.
He basically is trying to make excuses for why they went over.
This stadium, if you're interested in ancient history, cost around $350 million. That's what the Cleveland Stadium, the Nashville Stadium, Pittsburgh, Baltimore, all the stadiums that were built about that time in this kind of format, that's about what they cost. Between the state and the Bengals, we put up 100, so that left a nut of $250 million. That's a lot of money. But the sales tax was generating between $50 and $60 million a year. That's easily enough to handle this kind of debt obligation. Why didn't it handle the debt obligation? It's very simple. They had mission creep, as Dusty Rhodes called it. They took the funds that the voters had approved with the new sales tax, they being some of our local politicians, including some of those who are most critical of us. And they took that revenue stream and siphoned it off for Fort Washington Way, for the banks, for twice as much payment to the schools as had been committed prior to the vote. Now, I'm for schools. I'm for Fort Washington Way. We all are. But you can't pay for two things with the same dollar. And that's what they did. So after they paid for that, they didn't have money enough left over to pay for what they had to pay for here. That's where the problem came. We didn't have 1 penny of cost overruns.
Oh my God, we read about so many even already.
Also, that $350 million number is not
right.
Is not right. It wasn't it like
455.
Yeah.
So they're way over even his like, don't worry, stadiums cost this much. Also, he was basically hedging, saying it cost $350 when he promised them $250.
Also, if you have $100 million to offer, you probably have more than that you could have offered. And I'm all for school.
So I needed to get a little clarifier on that.
Yeah.
So I found an opinion piece from the Cincinnati Enquirer sort of refuting his saying that it's all Democrats' fault.
Stadium fiasco, not fault of Democrats. Blame all GOP ex-county commissioners. The letter, quote, streetcar follows stadium debacle, blaming Democrats for, quote, their stadium fiasco, places blame on the wrong doorstep. The plan to raise the county sales tax to pay for the football and baseball stadiums was created, proposed, and pushed to a vote by the all-Republican Hamilton County Commissioners. The huge cost overruns on construction of the football stadium was overseen by the all-Republican commissioners. The unbelievably sweet stadium lease signed with Mike Brown was negotiated and signed by the all-Republican commissioners. The prime mover in all this was Bob Bettinghouse, who famously came up with the plan at his kitchen table. Former Republican County Commissioner Bettinghouse... The way this is written is just chef's kiss. Former Republican County Commissioner Bettinghouse is now a highly paid employee of the Bengals. Coincidence? Fiasco is an accurate description, but it was brought to us by the all-Republican Hamilton County Commissioners. This is the power of a literary device called repetition.
Yes, keep mentioning the Republicans.
I just love the full sentence, the all-Republican County Commissioners.
Yeah. It's just so good pointing out that exact problem that politicians use on people because people are not as really informed.
Yeah.
So they'll just say like, obviously it's bad because of who's in power now, when they literally didn't put the policy in place that's causing that.
Yes.
So that leads me to a radio show clip about Mike Brown that I wanted to play.
Okay.
This is a rant just sort of about what's wrong with the Bengals and Mike Brown. Mo Egger in 2011 talking about everything with Mike Brown.
20 years of ineptitude, no playoff wins in that time, 2 playoff appearances, a management style that is archaic, a fan-friendliness of the organization that just isn't there. This is just the latest. Mike Brown, we've come to understand here, he's an extremely stubborn man. He's almost more interested in winning at the negotiating table than winning on the field. And it's extremely frustrating to a fan base that sees that type of attitude and that type of behavior as extremely counterproductive. We're a two-team town, with the exceptions of the colleges. We're a 2-team town, and look, the Reds have, for the last 20 years, not made a World Series. And yet, the Reds try. People feel good about the brand. People feel good about the organization. People feel good about the people making important decisions. So you're willing to give them a pass when seasons don't turn out the way they do. This past Bengals season, they went 4-12. People turned in their season tickets at an unprecedented level, and there was more disaffection and even apathy toward the Bengals than I can recall in my lifetime. He is, and I call him delusional. There's just no other way to put it. This man genuinely believes that what he is doing is effective, that he knows that he is surrounding himself with competent football people. And I hate to say this, and I say it publicly all the time, they simply do not care what I think. They do not care what their customers think. They do not care about what the people who built the stadium think. They don't care about what ESPN, the magazine, writes. They don't care about what other national publications write. They simply don't care. And as you can imagine, Rick, as a fan, it makes it incredibly frustrating. I'll give you a snapshot into the way the two teams treat just their fans. There was a story here, and I happened to talk to the guy on the radio. Kid goes to a Reds game, falls off the jungle gym set, breaks his arm. Organization gives the kid a lift to the hospital. 2 days later, the kid with his busted arm gets 4 scout level tickets and a greeting card signed by every member of the Reds. The head of the ballpark ops calls the dad every day. Stories like these are commonplace. The Bengals had a guy who 2 years ago got beaten to maybe within inches of his life at a football game. The guys who did it got away. I'm still waiting, and I'm sure that guy is still waiting for a member of the Bengals organization to call him.
Even with the jerk hotline?
Even with the jerk hotline.
Oh, my God.
Bunch of jerks.
Yeah, seriously. I really like the point he made of to be clear, none of them care. They do not care. And the thing is, in any industry, the people who are at the top of whatever organization that you're trying to support and be into, the people who are making the most money, the people who are at the top and making the decisions, they do not give a fuck about the whole kind of point. You know what I mean? The whole kind of point of having an NFL team is so that fans can support the NFL team. Otherwise, what's the point?
Yeah.
You could just play football not in front of people. And so it's always insane to me when you hear shit like this, where you're just then what's the point?
Especially when players asked in interviews or coaches are always it's about the fans. They don't care
They
at
do
all.
not care.
Especially the owners, especially the ones not directly involved in the football, just
Yeah.
the team asset. They see it, like that clip said, as a bargaining game.
Yeah.
They get to play a power move chip.
This is all business guy bullshit.
Yeah. We're getting really close to the end here. The story of Paul Brown Stadium acts as a cautionary tale for any city considering financing sporting venues. Mike Brown's ability to secure a deal that overwhelmingly benefited the Bengals while burdening the public for decades has had lasting consequences, as you've seen, and even to this day. They've had a little bit more success lately in the Joe Burrow blonde-head era.
Baby Burrow.
Despite long-running financial issues, they're still playing in Paul Brown Stadium, and they've had recent success with Burrow. In 2021, they even reached the Super Bowl.
I remember.
Losing. However, the stadium's financial issues have still persisted.
They also, I don't know how much money they're spending on this, but I like those uniforms.
Yeah, the white ones, the white and black.
Well, I just like that they use the tiger print.
Yeah, that's good.
I think I'm a big fan of animal print.
So here's how I want to end. And I just want to talk a little bit about the current day. But before that, why stadiums often fail to enrich cities in the way that they are promised to. So I just kind of looked at some articles and things and made a little summary of like some of the reasons. Overestimated economic impact is number one. Stadiums are supposed to attract tourism and new spending. Much of that money spent at the stadiums comes from local residents who would have spent it elsewhere in the city. This means the overall economic boost is often overestimated because it's the same amount of money being spent. Not necessarily going to go more. It's not necessarily going to go up just because of a stadium. Few lasting jobs. Although stadium construction creates temporary jobs for the actual construction, and most of the other like vendor and usher jobs are part-time, low wage and seasonal. So it's not really like offering a ton of employment that's reliable.
Certainly not year-round employment.
No. And then taxpayer burden. Obviously, we've already talked about that. Publicly funded stadiums often result in these overruns, just leaving all the costs to the taxpayers. Substitution effect. Instead of creating new activity, stadiums often just shift the spending from one area, like restaurants, to the stadium. They'll go there now.
Sure.
So it takes it away, actually, from the local businesses.
Yeah.
Missed opportunity costs, like public money spent on stadiums, could be better used for infrastructure, education, anything else to actually enhance the city, local business development. And then the privatization of public profits or public things. That's essentially what's happening here. The public financing of stadiums by private owners who could spend their own money.
Yep.
And also, you know, the deals that the Bengals and other teams usually sign give them all the naming rights, luxury box revenue. Like, they're making all the money and none of it's going back to the city.
No.
So it's a bad deal.
Especially for people who don't give a fuck about football.
Which is a lot of people in a city.
Yeah.
So it's wild. Imagine if they did that for other things more.
Oh my God.
You know?
Yeah.
Like, imagine if they did do that for like a theater or a concert venue. It would never get built.
Yeah. It's funny because like oftentimes when people are sort of like listing like things you could do in a city, it's like sports experiences and like arts and cultural experiences and dining experiences. We like to put arts and culture in with sports when we're talking generally of like things people are interested in, things people like to do, but we never put them in the same category when we're talking about how they should be financed.
Yep. Nope.
Arts, it's like, oh, donation based and nonprofit. It's crazy to me when it's like, oh, a new stadium needs to be built. Yeah, we'll just like find a way to put it through so that like the taxpayers can pay for it. Oh, we want to like build a new theater space.
No way.
Fuck if you can.
Yeah,
like,
get a rich guy.
Yeah, exactly.
So we're going to end with where we are today. This ran 9 days ago.
Okay.
So we're super current.
Yeah.
So this is just... The stadium is now called Paycor Stadium, by the way.
Paycor?
They sold the rights to get more money for the Bengals.
To finally pay off the stadium.
Meanwhile, in other news tonight, there is a $1.25 billion question lingering in Hamilton County tonight. Can we afford the latest Paycor Stadium renovation?
Oh my God.
Commissioners are looking for input from you right now, and so is WLWT News host Brian Hamrick. Tonight he joins us live with the story, and Brian, I'm guessing a mixed bag of reaction depending on who you ask.
Yeah, Cherie, if opinions were dollars, we'd certainly have enough to build this stadium already. There has to be at least $1.25 billion of those. The Bengals are arguably the most successful franchise in the history of the NFL.
We're tapped out. We're exhausted.
At least in stadium deals.
Oh.
And the latest has the Bengals about to take the negotiation field again, this time over a $1.25 billion renovation plan.
What?
Well, I looked at the price tag and first and went, holy cow. And I'm like, well, we do need some updates, no doubt about it.
I think it's pretty hefty. I really do. I'm all for the Bengals staying here, but just afraid that we're getting into too much.
Hamilton County is looking for the public's feedback on the newly released master plan. It calls for closing out one end of the stadium and making the entire place more accessible. Giant video screens, field overlooks, fan experiences. There's a large indoor practice facility with offices, an indoor field, and 2 outdoor fields. But that price is getting attention.
So if there's a limit to how much input Hamilton County taxpayers can put into this whole thing.
It's not cheap to have an NFL team in your city. That's just the cost of doing business.
Yeah, I mean, it's like the market for professional franchises. I mean, there is a market out there. And
Dr. Joe Cobbs is with the NKU Hale School of Business, Sports Business. He says there's a reality to being an NFL city.
If you want to have an NFL team in this environment, then you've got to put forth some public money, especially in a mid-market sized city like Cincinnati.
All a reminder, in the NFL game, there's the offensive line, defensive line, and maybe most important,
the bottom line.
Yeah, and the big question now is who will put in money? Well, Bengals will, the taxpayers will, but will the state? Who else might be involved in that? The NFL, and then there are the details of the lease agreement. Will there be any kind of revenue sharing on things like naming the stadium or watch parties, things like that? So the details of this lease, when they renegotiate that, will be very important as well. Reporting live, Brian Hemrick, WLWT News 5.
So, I need you to read comments under, it's not that video because they turned the comments off. I found another news report that was basically the same report.
$1.25 billion for a playground for wealthy people. Is there an opt-out for being taxed for any of this? Glad I don't live in Hamilton County. Any improvements should include a roof. Another tax levy coming. Voters in Hamilton County were not too bright when they voted to upkeep the stadium. I mean, I'm sure they didn't quite understand.
They didn't, because they were played by fucking Emperor Palpatine himself.
By the all-Republican county commissioners.
My name is Mike Brown, and I would like everyone to suck the blood of a baby.
Oh, Jesus
like
Christ.
I do before bed, and then talk to me.
I have not watched the Star Wars prequels enough to know if that's an accurate.
It's not. There's no babies. There's no babies involved. That was just a dark thing I came up with.
It was just a dark thing that came out of my brain.
So, the very last thing we're going to end on before we roll the music is a fan reaction of a guy similar to that Big Vol Daddy one. This is a different guy. He posted
from his car
4 days ago from his car. 4 days ago. This video
fresh.
has 100 views. This is called The Taxi Guy, and he's a Bengals fan, I guess.
All right, fine. You guys want an NFL video? Here it is. This team is fucking garbage. Absolute garbage. And you know what? I can't even blame Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow played absolutely phenomenal tonight. Only fucking Mike Brown could have a team with this much talent on the end of his fingertips and be 0-3. This is why I checked out right after week 1, because I knew, I seen the handwriting, I seen it coming a mile away. Mike Brown, you are fucking terrible. You are just flat out horrible.
That was the episode on the Bengals, Mike Brown, and Paul Brown before him.
Wow.
Oh, yeah, and Marge Schott.
Oh, my God. I've never felt so betrayed by you. You gave me a lady named Marge in a caftan and a big fuzzy dog that was wearing a hat. And then you told me that she was a Nazi after I had already enjoyed the video.
The first turn was the dog, and the second turn was Marge Schott in the caftan, and the third Reich was
get out of here.
What she said next.
I can't stand you. Yeah, Mike Brown is a real piece of shit.
Thank you so much for listening to another episode of Sports Kid Drama Kid. If you'd like to support the show,
you can visit our Patreon. It is patreon.com/SKDKpod.
Yep. And we will see you in the next episode.
We sure will.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
Do